In this video, we're going to be going over oil pastel techniques while creating a valued sphere. So I'm going to start off by creating my horizon line. I have my reference image right to my left, and the horizon line separates the sky from the ground. I'm just blocking it in about where I see it on my reference image. And now I am blocking in the sphere itself. For this, we're just going to start off with a plain circle. Now I'm going to be looking at my image and blocking in where my shadows are going to be. So I have a shadow that's on the table. I see a little bit of reflected light. That's the light that reflects up from the table. That's on the bottom part of the sphere. And I see that it makes just a curvy line, the shadow itself. I am just placing that in so I know where to add the darkest values in my composition. So I'm going to be creating a blue sphere, but you can use whichever colors you'd like. So I'm using 2 different types of blue. You can also use 3, and then along with a white oil pastel. I'm also using a ginormous Q-tip to blend it. I'm going to start in by blocking my shadows. So like always, you go in with your darkest color, and I am just going to fill in the space. It's okay if it starts off looking a little bit impressionistic. Oil pastels are naturally that way. They are not usually seen in a perfected line. So I'm going in with my darkest color, just filling in the areas that I blocked in that my shadow are present in, as you're seeing here. Now that I've blocked in my darkest areas, I'm going in with my middle blue. This is going to start to blend those 2 colors together. This is again just the first layer. You really got to layer oil pastels to get a nice gradient in them. You can see I'm holding onto my paper, not really focusing on that many details yet. I am just going in with that middle tone oil pastel, layering in some new areas, but also the areas where I blocked in the shadow the last time. You can even see in some of the areas that I'm starting to create a gradient already. Now I'm going in with my lightest shade of blue, not touching the white yet, and I'm filling in the rest of the area of my sphere. This is going to start to get in those lighter tones, the lighter values. So I'm coloring in the reflected light. That's the light that's shining up off of the table. And then I'm also going to go in and do the area where my light source is coming from. That's on the left-hand side. That is where all of my lightest values are found. And I'm just filling that in with the lightest oil pastel. Now I am going to go in with the white, and I'm going to get those highlighted areas. So that is the lightest part of my sphere. That's where my main light source is coming from, so that is on the left-hand side and a little bit in the light that's reflecting off of the table. Now I'm going to go in with my darkest shade again, and I'm going to start to blend. So I have the colors blocked in. I'm going to go in, add those second, third layers of oil pastel, and just blend that line where I went from my darkest to my lightest areas. So we have a nice gradient in between. The oil pastels are going to do some of the work, but then I am going to end up going in with a Q-tip and really blending it out in a little bit. You can see when I'm going in, I am making just smaller motions. You can use slow little circles method, just tiny little circles, and I'm filling in that space. One thing that we need to be aware of with the black paper is we don't want any black paper showing through. So I am making sure to use heavier pressure when I'm doing this, just to fill all of those tiny little fibers, all the tiny holes on the paper itself. From this point, I am just transitioning back and forth between my different values, making the tiny circles, making sure that I just have that gradient just like we practiced on our practice sheet. believe I've almost done the most that I can with the oil pastels, so I'm going to move on to using my ginormous Q-tip. I am again just making tiny circular motions in that area where I can see that I need a little bit more blending. I don't want any harsh lines on this. I want as smooth as gradient as I can possibly get. So the Q-tip is going to really help me, and it's going to assist me to get that smooth gradient that I will be looking for and that I want in a well-made, well-thought-out composition. So now I'm just going over the areas where it's that transition area from a dark to a lighter shade, making tiny circular motions, just using my Q-tip. This has been blended to about the level that I want it to, and now I'm going to go in with my white and add in those major highlights. We see a major highlight right around the left hand side of our sphere, and again in that area right on top on the left hand side. That is the lightest area on our composition. So I'm going in and I'm blocking that in with the white, and I'm going in and kind of defining it really with my lightest blue color, just so I can have a gradient that is represented with just color on there. Now I'm beginning to pay attention to the shadow itself. I'm going in with my darkest color. I did put a little bit of my middle tone blue in there, and I'm just blending all of that together. My shadow is some of the darkest area. I'm just making sure it has a little bit more of dimension to it because we do have a lighter, just a very small light area in our shadow. It makes it look more realistic once it's done. So this is going to be my final touches on my sphere, and then we're going to slightly touch on the background. For the background, you're going to be shading, creating a gradient using the complement of the blue on the table for our horizon line. So a complement is the color that is across from the color on the color wheel. So the color that's across from blue on the color wheel is orange. So say if you chose green, then red would be the color you're doing in the background, and if you chose like yellow or purple, those would be paired together. So it is either blue and orange together, yellow and purple together, or green and red together. I am layering in with white first, just so that it is naturally lighter. You can see me just blocking that in. It does get a little bit harder along the smaller area, but this is something we got to make work. We need a complete composition here. So I am first layering in with my white. Now I'm grabbing my lightest color. I decided to use a peach, not a yellow for this one, and I am starting with my light and working my way down a little bit because I am just going to be layering this one. I just wanted to get that lighter area around the curve so I have really nice definition there. And I'm going on both sides of my sphere. So my video is about to cut off, but for the rest of it, I'm going in with the same techniques. I'm creating a gradient from light to dark, lightest at the top, darkest at the bottom. It's the same techniques of just layering and blending the colors together and blending it out with the Q-tips, layering the colors themselves and creating that smooth transition that we like to see. So this is going to be the end of this video. We are not going to touch the upper part of the background. We're just focusing on the sphere itself and the table. So this is about what your end composition should look like.